And we're back with the Coaches Unscripted Podcast. I am your host, Trey Belcher, and with me, as always, is owner of Go Performance Clarksburg and Gemini Fitness Solutions, Corey Smallwood. How's it going, bud?
What's up, Trey? How are you doing, man?
Everything is good. It's always good in the gym business, except when it's not. But it's mostly good, I promise.
It's always good, except when it's not. You can say that pretty much about anything in life, man.
Amen.
Profound. You're like Confucius over there. You're like the Southern Virginia Confucius.
Well, look, I've got a member who has been after me to get a TikTok, and which you can't do now, but shows how long I put this thing off to do my Treyisms, whatever that means. So hopefully we'll intersperse these things here, there, and everywhere for the duration of our time together.
Sounds like something you can catch in Tijuana on a bad Friday night.
I don't know about Tijuana, but you can catch it down in Ringgold.
Starting off with a bang on this episode.
We've gotten through all the pleasantries. Now it's time to be ourselves.
Now we can be real. Right. We've either lured them in and they're hooked, or if this is their first exposure, they're in for a rude awakening.
We thank you for coming, and we'll see you guys hopefully down the road. Yeah,
that's
thanks.
Right. That's right. One of the things, so just kind of recapping on what we talked about last week, I got a great email. First of all, everybody who's watching these, thank you. That's awesome. Keep sending in your comments. You can reach out to either Trey or myself. You could leave a comment on the YouTube channel or whatever. But I had so we talked a lot about youth performance training, overtraining, burnout, all the type of things. And then I had a mom reach out to me who says that their kid is a 10th grader, I think, but doesn't play sports, and asked if working out is okay for them, or should they be getting them into strength training and conditioning training? And the answer is absolutely. Like, let's really, really get them physically active, because we're teaching these routines early. You and I, we deal with members that come in that have never worked out before. They're 40 or 50. And what do they always say? God, I wish I had done this sooner. Well, they were just never introduced to it. So the sooner that we can introduce these kids that are non-athletes into strength training, the better that it's going to be, especially, as they're young, especially for females when they're, growing. It's going to help with bone mineral density. It's going to help with all the positive things that we know. But so many of our facilities and so much of our marketing is geared and poised and catered to the athlete, that a lot of times these non-athletes, we call them mathletes here. I had a kid one time who he told me, he was like, I'm a mathlete. And I didn't know what that was. And I looked it up. There's competitions. Like, he's legit. So we have mathletes and athletes here. So if they're not into it, we have to expose them to it at an early age, right? We have to expose them to strength training and all the benefits. My kids are not athletes, right? Which is ironic for somebody that is a strength and conditioning coach. You have a kid that they're in theater, they dance, they're in SGA, do all the clubs. Really, they're busier than I ever was as an athlete with practices and that type of stuff. But we have to figure out how to expose them. Absolutely. At my gym, we start them in sixth grade. Once they get to sixth grade, they can start doing strength and conditioning with us. It's neat to see them in the training session with the athletes and seeing what they can do, what their physical potential is. And I know you feel the same way about that.
Oh, dude, definitely. So I think there's a couple different things and I wrote a couple notes down when you said that, because I wanted to touch on these 2 points. For so many people, number one, yes, marketing goes to athletes because that is sort of the sexy thing. Everybody wants to be the athlete. Everybody wants to be the star quarterback. Everybody wants to go to the next level and to be a pro athlete. But one thing that we can do to those kids who are not athletes, we can do two very important things. We can give them a place to belong. Mm-hmm. And because when you walk in this door, and this is something that is very, very important to me, when you walk in this door, we are all the same. I tell people, my name is on the door. That just means I'm responsible, but I'm first among equals here. everybody in here is the same. We all have one voice. We all have one vote. And we all share in the load together. So giving kids, especially kids, because that's such a tough age, and as they're going through puberty, and they kids can be tough.
Oh,
we learn things
school is hard.
we learn things as we get older, and I've been guilty of this. I have apologized to people, in the last 5 years that I was a jerk to in high school. And those people have trained with me, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to look them in the eye and say, hey, I was not very nice to you growing up, and I appreciate the fact that you're here and that I can look you in the eye and tell you that. So giving kids a place to belong who may not feel like they have a place to belong. They're not an athlete. They don't fit into some label that we have to feel like we put on things. Giving kids a place to belong where they can come in and work beside athletes, work beside adults, share ideas, exchange things, learn things from each other. I think that is so important, because we can help give them value. We can share our values and sort of guide them and mold them and help them along, but we can really just give them that place. And two, when we develop these lifelong habits, you're not going to be an athlete forever. At some point will be your last game. And then what? So developing giving them a place to belong and helping them develop their own personality and their own sense of who they are and well-being, and then having a way to develop those lifelong habits that they can carry with them, so that when they become the adult and they're still in the gym and they see the new mathlete come in, they can share their experiences, and it becomes the rising tide raising all ships. And I think those two things are the biggest things that we can do for the kids who are not athletes, but still need to develop these habits and still need to learn and grow physically and mentally and together, have that symbiotic relationship with the two. I think those two areas are where we can make a huge difference in these kids' lives.
Now, I can't remember the exact statistic, but the last time I looked it up, I think it's like 35% of high school students play sports. That's 65% that aren't. And nobody's reaching out to them. There are no gyms that are targeting the non-athlete, and yet they need physical activity. They're not getting it at school. They're not getting it in PE. They're not just it's not happening. So, I mean, that's a great way to boost your, if you're a coach and you're doing athletic performance training, hey, reach out to the non-athletes as well, as opposed to just going to the Little League games and all the other things to recruit, your members and your student athletes. Like, look outside of that and say there's a 65% population that is untapped. They're not going anywhere, or they're going to the YMCA and not getting any real structure there. So anyways, that was a kind of a tangent. The question asked by one of the moms, and I said, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And that's such an important question. And please thank her for me.
Yeah.
And, and when you talk about growth and sort of, we were kind of joking before we came on, I, several years ago, back at this very seminal speaker school that we talk about so much, that has really led us to here to the point we are today having these conversations. So in 2022, I did a presentation for a gym group, and it was the first real presentation I'd ever done. So I send that presentation after the fact to Tom Plummer, who runs Speaker School and does, NFBA, National Fitness Business Alliance. And Tom is a friend, and you and Tom certainly have exponentially more history than we do. But I sent the presentation to Tom, and I said, hey, man, tear it apart. I know that I need to get better, and I want you to take this, rip it apart, and break me down so we can rebuild this thing. Yeah. And so Tom, being Tom, we go to speaker school a few months later, and Tom says, I got something great for you, Trey. So he gets into his program, and he says, all right, guys, I'm going to show you what not to do. So, he starts going down this list before he brings up this video. Well, he hits play, and guess whose face is sitting there? So from here on at speaker school, I am what not to do. I am the example of what not to, how not to give a presentation. And I think it's, it's great. It's, it's stung a little bit, but at that point, I was the worst I was going to be. And, from there until now, there's sea change. And so by seeking out those growth opportunities, whether it is at a gym, if you're a high school kid and not really an athlete, but there's something more out there, or, in your job, seeking information, you can learn and you can grow. And where you are today is really, you reestablish a baseline every day. So if you learn and you grow and you're better tomorrow and you're better the next day, then, if you get 1% better every day, in 5 years, the world's going to look very different. So I think it sort of ties all those things in together. But, and plus, I knew you were in the back of the room laughing so we all got a good laugh out of it, but it just shows how growth and how maturity and how seeking information can really sort of change the course of your life.
Yeah. And for those who are presenters and speakers, there are a lot of great people out there that do these speaker schools. They're brutal. They're not like pat you on the back and rah, rah, rah. This is like they peel the layers off of you, and you have better be comfortable being uncomfortable, because it is very uncomfortable. And it was neat actually to see the video, Trey, because I think not like a segment prior to that, you actually did a presentation, and it actually showed the growth that you had made just from that presentation you recorded a couple months prior to where you were there. It's super easy to remain status quo, right? And it's funny because the brain prefers homeostasis. The brain prefers not to change, even if it knows changes for the better. It would rather still stay. We see it all the time, people that do nutrition. Oh, I really know that I should be eating more broccoli. The brain knows that, but if you've been used to eating, cookies instead, it's going to go back to the cookies. It will resist change at all costs. So, to actually force yourself into some of those uncomfortable scenarios and situations, whether it's as a parent, we take a kid and we put them into a youth performance training. As an adult, we ask for a raise, or we do things that's going to put us in a better position for that, or we learn public speaking, which is ranks higher than the fear of death. So there are more people that would rather die than get up in front of a group of people and speak. So that's where growth happens. Growth happens in the challenges. Growth doesn't happen in the status quo.
Yeah, it's and for us as gym owners, we can help be that safety net for the clients and say, look, I know it's uncomfortable, and here's an example of something being uncomfortable to me, because they look at us as the guy who's always out and always in front and always talking and always being so over the top, and they think, well, we don't have these insecurities. These guys have it made, and that's not entirely the case. We just are willing to take on those challenges. Whether it's public speaking, which I think the figure is like 85% of the population, is terrified of public speaking, and it is because you're out there and you're exposed, and if you mess up, then everybody's going to laugh at you. But the way I think of it, if you took any person and put them in that spot, they're going to be nervous. They're going to sweat a little bit. They're going to, be a little short of breath initially. But once you get into it and once you do it, you realize I do have a voice. And that's, something I've had to navigate over the last couple of years, is figuring out what that voice is. You and I've had conversations in Providence at the Perform Better, sitting in the crowd, listening to somebody talk. You know, and you've said to me, you know, you better be up on that stage next year. And I didn't have the voice. And now, you know, here we are doing this. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm speaking. So I guess I found my voice to a certain extent. And it's a gradual process, and it's a continuing process, and seeking that information and refining that. And each time we do these, they get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And it's no different than anything else, but creating that safety net for our people, for our clients, to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to navigate these things. I got your back. And
it's okay to fail.
Yep.
If you don't fail, you're not pushing the envelope. You're not trying new things. So we'll have, I know fear of failure is a giant motivator. It's also a giant deterrent. So there are people that come to the gym and they're brand new. I don't want to fail, or I don't want to be the only fat one in the gym, or I'm not able to do X, Y, and Z, or they come in and immediately is like, my back is broken, my knee is broken, I can barely walk upright, like I can't do stairs, and they that's all defense. That's all defense mechanisms. And then a week into it, they're, you know, doing lunges and stepping up on things, and you're like, what happened to those knees?
Yeah.
Right. And for us professionally, you're going to fail. You're going to have that talk that's going to bomb, or you're going to have that presentation and no one's there. The only person sitting in the room is the person that's up next. And you're like, well, I better stay for them just in case as well, you know? So we have these things. And if you think about, and like I said, we need to be that safety net, but we also need to have set realistic expectations that it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. You're going to have some setbacks. You're going to have some speed bumps, roadblocks, you know, all those things. If you think about like what the salespeople always say the deterrents are, or your objections, or you know, price, spouse, time, and commitment. And I changed that when I talk to our staff. I don't think commitment is necessarily the right word. I think it's more belief that I'm not so sure I can do this, or I have tried this in the past and failed. And therefore, status quo is way easier. Even if it's not right, status quo is easier than challenging yourself to do that next thing or that better thing.
Yeah. When it stings, you don't want to have that. You don't want to feel that sting again.
Yeah, you learn.
And, you know, for us, it's almost like being a parent teaching your kid how to ride a bike. You know, as you take the training wheels off, you're going to fall a couple times, and that's okay. You know, we're going to dust ourselves off, and we're going to get right back on the wagon. And you think about, for us, as we did this, you know, the first trial run, I did a little introduction of you, and you said, we're going to have to change that.
I'm such a jerk. Why are you doing this with me?
You know, and then we got to the first episode, and it's like, we need a different outro. You know, we're constantly working through these things to refine our processes and to make this thing sound professional.
Right.
And so it's all about continuing to push those boundaries and push those envelopes and to grow and to learn and to get better, because better is always on the horizon if you're seeking that.
And I say go fast. Like there's if there's something that you want to do, go after it. Like the slow pace and testing everything out first. And I got to make sure that everything is perfect before we hear it all the time. Hey, can you tell me about your gym? Yeah, okay, I'll join when I get in shape. They want to perfect their fitness before they come into the gym to do fitness, and it just makes no sense. If you want to perfect your speaking before you go up and do your first presentation, well, you're never perfect.
Never.
You're never going to have it exactly right. You do it by, you know, taking your wax and learning from it and making the next one better and the next one better. So whether it's fitness, whether it's your career, whether it's you know, that cute barista, like, move. Why wait? Why wait?
And you find, once you get to the other side of it, and you can only do this by having this perspective, you find that it's not as far away as you thought it was.
Correct. Yes.
And you know, for us, and we've talked about doing this and this being a year and a half process, And it was, but it really wasn't. Once the conversation happened,
Right.
we're really at 4 months here.
Right.
And so it sat in my head for a year and a half. But the action was very quick relative to. But and then once the ball starts rolling and it starts rolling downhill, and then it gets faster and faster and faster. Yeah. And here we are, at episode 4, and pretty soon we're going to be at episode 54.
Yeah.
And you're going to look back at episode 1 and 2 and be like, man, that was terrible.
Terrible. So bad.
Yeah.
So bad. Really like this.
But that's how it's supposed to be.
It is. And you hear it from your clients, you hear it from your athletes. They'll try something, or we'll challenge them to try something, and they'll be like, I'm surprised.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surprised I could do that. Oh my gosh, wow, that was surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But that's great. You should be surprised. You should be surprised on the regular of things that you try that you think that you can't do, that is just beyond your comfort zone. And you too will be surprised, just like your members, just like those, maybe at work that you challenged, or an employee that you want them to do something. Gosh, I'm shocked. That worked.
Yeah.
I actually did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And done is always better than perfect. And I have been guilty of that, especially with social media. I allow myself to get hemmed up in that it's got to be perfect. It's got to be exactly what I want it to be. And it's hindered me, and I've allowed it to hinder myself for far too long. And, and then as we start this, then I'm out here pushing stuff on social media at Coaches Unscripted Podcast on Instagram. So, you just, you have to put yourself in the situation. You have to put yourself in the position. You have to put yourself out there to be doing something that you care about, that you're passionate about. And as I've started to do this with the podcast, well, now I've got to do more social media for the gym, the stuff that I really should have been doing the whole time. And now once you start to do this, then you're like, well, none of this is really bad. This is who you are. This is what you're doing. So just be yourself, and who cares if it's, if it makes you look like a doofus, you're going to do that well enough and plenty of times enough anyway. So,
oh yeah.
What's the difference?
That's and people that are watching this, I think there's an understanding. Oh yeah, that makes all the sense. That makes all the sense in the world. But then there's the doing, right? G.I. Joe used to always frustrate me because they would say knowing is half the battle. Well, what's the other half of the battle? Yeah. It's doing. Nike got it right?
Yeah.
So, that's it. Like, find something today. Find something this week. Whenever you're listening to this, and there's that. The mountain. There's something that you want to do. What are you going to do today to help facilitate that, to move that needle forward?
Yeah, and there is something, because there's always something.
There's always something
in your mind that you've been putting off, that you've been, sort of dreading, sort of not wanting to put yourself out there for. Everybody's got something.
Yeah. Fear.
Just go try it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not going to be as bad as you think it is.
Never is. Never is.
And the more you have to work for it, the more you'll appreciate it on the backside once you get that perspective. So, it's just a matter of feeling some sense of accomplishment. Hey, I did something. The book, I think it's William McRaven, Make Your Bed. When you first wake up in the morning, make your bed, because regardless of what else happens beyond that, you will have accomplished something for that day.
It's your first win of the day.
Yeah. So, for all you guys out there, for the non-athlete kids, for the people who've been putting these things off, for the people who are just a little too afraid to put themselves out there, just go for it, because you will be glad you did, and you'll be so much better for it. And it will be one of the more rewarding things that you will have done for yourself lately.
Yeah, without question.
Well, I think it's about that time. We've reached the bewitching hour here at Coaches Unscripted Podcast, where it's time to wrap this puppy up.
Right. We got work to do, Trey.
Yeah, we got work to do. We got clients. We got people who are waiting on us to help drive them to that place that they want to go. So Thank you guys for joining us on the Coaches Unscripted Podcast. We hope today's stories have inspired and empowered you in your coaching journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with fellow coaches. Connect with us on Instagram, the Coaches Unscripted Podcast. Continue the conversation to stay updated on future episodes. Until next time, for Corey Smallwood, I'm Trey Belcher. Keep coaching from the heart and building strong communities.